and morbid and awkward friends. How are you today? I hope you're having a lovely one wherever you are, morning, day, new night. If you're new here, hey, what's up? My name is Liz, and I'm your host here on Creating Crime Time. And today we are continuing on the 25 Days of True Crime. This is going to be the first of a 3-part video. We are going to be covering the murder swamp killer today, which ties into tomorrow's video, which is the Cleveland torso murders, and then following up with the Black Dahlia murder. So why don't you grab something to drink and let's get into today's true crime case. Insert whatever that is. So they haven't really attached these cases together, but they all bear very close similarities when it comes to these certain things. So there was murders that were happening in Pennsylvania during the 1920s and 30s that they believe was the early work of the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, which is the Cleveland torso killer. And basically what happened is that these murders were about 100 mile, it's like a 100-mile difference between these areas. And some people speculate that it's not the same person, and some people do believe it's the same person. I believe it's the same person, and I mean, a lot of things point to that it's the same person, but some people are just weird when it comes to stuff like that, so, me. What am I doing? Don't mind me. Stay. Alright, so we're going to start at the beginning of this. Now, they believe that the span of crimes for this one is 1921 to 1950, and that engulfs all of the victims when it comes to the Cleveland torso murder, and also the Black Dahlia. So, on March 7th of 1921, and this is all going to be kind of like timeline fashion, and in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, W.C. Jackson came home around 4 p.m. from Elwood City Mill, and he found a man knocking on the door. He shrugged it off, and then he went to go run some errands. Well, he also watched the man walk off at the same time. When he returned, the fireplace was out, which was unusual at the time, especially because, I mean, you're still in winter, so it's going to be cold. You want the heat on. And the house was really quiet. When he went to call his mom, now his mama Emma, she was 73 at the time, lived with him, there was no response. He searched for his mom, and then he found her. She was sprawled across a blood-splotched bed. Her throat had been violently slashed and dangling from the side of the bed. Her hands were resting on her breasts, and he feared that the killer was still in his house, so he grabbed a shotgun and checked the room. And he remembered that a man ran after him, and the man was a man named Andrew Kuntz. And they would then search the property, and they came up empty. So he then called the constable in the area, W.C. Morrison, the coroner, H.E. Helling, and he called the undertaker, J.I. Porter. Robbery wasn't a motive, nothing was taken, there was no valuables taken, the jewelry was left at the home, and the motive is unknown, and no suspects to go off of, and the case went cold. Fast forward to October 3rd of 1923, Charles Mcgregor was found naked and decapitated in a pool shed near Newcastle, Pennsylvania. There was no sign of a struggle, but it was evident that the decapitation occurred at that scene. Also, in that same year, in July, on Rock Point in the Beaver River, the limbless body of an unidentified 6-year-old girl was discovered by a man named C.C. Whiteside, and there's no other information that is known from this discovery and from this unidentified girl, or none that I can find. Fast forward to the 3rd of January of 1925 in Park Gate, which is in Elwood City. Joe Staddy and James Joseph found their clubhouse on fire. And when they entered the clubhouse And once the fire was out, they found the bones of a dog, and the dog turned out to be their their friend, 14-year-old Luigi Nosceshi. I'm going to say Nosceshi. Luigi Nosceshi. That's very sad and tragic. On October 6th of 1925, a duck hunter found the body of a decapitated white male under a log in the murder swamp. The body was 2 to 3 weeks old, and while investigating the crime scene, a foul odor was caught by detectives, and under the log was a decomposing head of the previous victim. A rope, a hat, and burnt clothing were found nearby, including and indicating that the killer tried to burn the evidence, but failed to do so because it was a damp environment. October 17th of 1925, around the previous crime scene, so literally right around there, 4 duck hunters found the decapitated skeleton of a man who was partially clothed and poorly hidden under a log. The coroner determined that he was killed about 4 months prior, being found with a precise blow to the neck that decapitated him. This is also the same thought when it comes to one of the victims for the Cleveland torso murder, is that one of them has a clean-cut decapitation similar to this, which you'll find out about tomorrow. Yay! During the search of the area, the head was found, but it was determined to be from another victim, which was an elderly woman. It also was determined that the victim's head had been dumped in the swamp for nearly a year earlier, and near the skull was a pile of clothes found to have belonged to the previous victim, and it was found 2 days prior. So 2 days after this, so on October 19th, police performed a massive search of the swamp, and this is when they found 15 small bones, presumably of hands and feet, 2 vertebrae, the lower jaw of the 3rd victim, a blue cap, a strip of dried human flesh, hair caked in dry human blood, and presumably is from one of the victim's scalps. Yay. October 16th of 1934, 2 men were running their hunting dogs through the alleged murder swamp when they discovered a badly decomposed body of a man. And it was the evening that Constable Walter G. Bannon was unable to secure the crime scene until the morning. The body was partially buried face down, with his head still attached. Removal of the body revealed that there was a whiskey bottle and a large iron spike hidden under the body. Yeah, so this body was presumed to have been buried 4 months prior. On July 1st of 1936, 2 P and LE workers at the Newcastle Junction were inspecting a string of old boxcars, and this is when they noticed that an abandoned car for the last 5 years, one of them was open, which is not something that would be found, especially since they're abandoned. And when they went inside, this is when they found the badly decomposed body of a male covered in a large burlap sack. The body had been there for several months, and the body was also on top of a pouch of tobacco. And there was 3 blood-stained newspapers from late 1933. 2 were from the Pittsburgh Press, and 1 was from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Yeah. Meh. Also, right before this murder is when the Lady of the Lake was found. So the Lady of the Lake, she was found on the 5th of September of 1934, and she was found at Euclid Beach, which is on the Lake Erie shore. She was estimated to be between the ages of 33 and 37. She was 120 pounds, and she died about 3 to 4 months prior to discovery. The victim's lower torso, thighs attached but amputated at the knee, were found. She was discovered by a young man that was just in the area as she had washed ashore. A search after was successful in finding a few of her remaining body parts, but her head was never recovered. The medical examiner for Cuyahoga County, his name is A.J. Pierce, he then discovered that there was a chemical substance used on the skin that made it red and leathery and super tough. Fun. Fun, fun, fun. So next, timeline-wise, is when they would find Edward Andrassy, and this was be for Cleveland, the Cleveland torso murder in September of 1935. They would also find bodies in January 1936, June 1936, July 1936, September 1936, February 1937, which is the second Lady of the Lake. She was found literally right near where the first Lady of the Lake was found. We have 2 more in 1937, and then we have 3 in 1938. So, and those were all tied to the Cleveland torso murder. But back into the murder swamp killer. On October 13th of 1939, a group of 4 boys who were looking for walnuts along the edge of the murder swamp, they found the decapitated body of a young man, and he was about 18 years old, and hidden in the thicket of tall grass. So the body had been placed atop of newspapers and then burnt. It was found that the newspaper was also placed in the victim's hands as well to remove fingerprints. So newspapers in the hands, and once it's set on fire, it's gonna send your fingerprints. The coroner determined that the head was removed with skill and that the body was roughly about a month old. Mere 6 days later, the P&LE worker at Newcastle Junction discovered the severed head in an empty gondola car. This was on the canal track, meaning it was the closest track to the river, and just 700 yards away from the body that they found 6 days prior. So they had just found the young boy in the swamp, and now they find this 700 yards away. So it was determined this was the head of the young man that was found on the 13th, and that it had determined the murder occurred in the swamp, and then the killer removed the head, placing it in the gondola car. But that's not the only thing that they find. No, these poor P&LE workers. Man, May 3rd of 1940, P&LE workers in the rail at the McKees Rocks near Pittsburgh were inspecting a string of old cars, and they found the mutilated remains of a naked man covered in a large burlap bag. The victim had been cut into 7 pieces. All pieces were there except for the head, which is a common thing with the Cleveland torso murder, is that the head wasn't always found. Yay! Police were contacted, and minutes later, literally minutes later, 2 more bodies were found. One of which was a known homosexual and former convict from Wisconsin. His name is James David Nicholson. Nicholson had been decapitated, and he had the word Nazi carved into his chest, but the Z was backwards, so kind of like Nazi. So a lot of people with his murder believe that the killer was German, and this is obviously due to him carving the word Nazi into his chest. Obviously this isn't proven, it's just like a thing that they think about. The other victim was a man who had been cut up into 5 pieces and covered in a large burlap sack. They had been killed about 3 to 6 months prior to their discovery and were all burned to some degree. But that's not the last case. No! We have the murder of Robert Robertson. He was 41 years old, and on the 22nd of July... Why is part of me fuzzy? Never mind. On the 22nd of July in 1950, he was found at 2138 Davenport Avenue in Cleveland. His cause of death was decapitation, and he was believed to have been dead between 6 to 8 weeks prior to being found. So that would be the last murder that's kind of tied to all of these and would happen not long after the slaying of the Black Dahlia. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's true crime tale. Don't forget to check in tomorrow for the Cleveland Torso murders, because I'll talk about the ones that are in between that other span, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.